Welcome to Concept Craft. We are presenting step-by-step videos training to crack your certification exam, so you can gain the confidence to take on any accounting challenge. Now let's begin our today's lesson. Writing off invoices. Learning outcomes. In this lesson, we'll cover using the write-off invoices tool in QuickBooks Online Accountant. Topics: how the write-off invoices tool works, writing off invoices, using credit memos to write off invoices, creating a credit memo dated in the current period, the right way to write off bad debt. No one likes having to write off bad debt. When completing period-end reviews for your clients, you may come across invoices that haven't been, and won't ever be, paid by a customer. This could be because the customer went out of business or expecting payment is unrealistic. How can you and QuickBooks Online help? QuickBooks Online offers several options for resolving bad debt. One is the write-off invoices tool, which you can only access through QuickBooks Online Accountant. There are other options to resolve bad debt, but you'll have to think carefully about which is most appropriate for your client. How the write-off invoices tool works. The write-off invoices tool works by zeroing out the invoice's balance. It does this by adding the invoice's open amount to the discount field on the original invoice. It writes off balances as of the original invoice date and removes accounts receivable balances. It does not adjust sales tax. Writing off invoices. Let's see how to write off some invoices for a customer that has gone out of business. In QuickBooks Online Accountant, select Accountant Tools and then Write Off Invoices. Use the Invoice Age drop-down to narrow down invoices for a certain period and set the to-date date. Use the Balance Less Than field to see invoices with an amount lower than specified. Select Find Invoices. Check the boxes next to the invoices to write off, then select Write Off. Select the account where you want the write-off to be posted. In this case, it's the Bad Debts Expense account. Finally, select Apply. And that's it. The invoices are written off and no longer appear in the list. Using credit memos to write off invoices. There are situations when the write-off invoices tool isn't the best way to write off an invoice. For example, when the client uses accrual basis reporting and the invoices to be written off are in a closed period. Sales tax applies to an invoice that won't be paid. So, what can you do? In these situations, you can use a credit memo to close out the open receivable. First, you need to do some setup work to prepare for setting up the credit memo. To do that, add an uncollectible or bad debt expense account. Add a service or non-inventory item, posting to that account. Alternatively, you could set up a bad debt item and map it to a revenue account. The bottom line will be the same as the first method, but this approach reduces revenue directly without having a separate bad debt expense account. If you wanted to know what you'd written off, you could look at item-based reports. Pro Advisor Tip: when using credit memos to write off invoices, you'll want to turn off the setting to automatically apply credit memos in most cases. If automatically apply credit memos is switched on, QuickBooks Online applies the credit to the oldest invoice first, rather than looking for an exact match. So, if you have multiple outstanding invoices, some of which will be paid, the credit memo may be applied incorrectly. If you don't see any transactions when you open the Receive Payment screen and enter the customer name, this indicates that the Automatically Apply Credit setting is checked. Creating and applying a credit memo dated in the current period. Now let's look at how you create a credit memo dated in the current period. Before starting, make sure that the Automatically Apply Credits option is turned off. Select Plus New, then Credit Memo. Select the customer. Enter an appropriate date, typically in the current period. If you are writing off an invoice dated in a closed period, you need to use a date in the current period so you don't change prior period numbers. In the Product/Service column, select Bad Debt. Then enter the amount you are writing off as a positive number. Uncheck the tax box if there was no sales tax on the original invoice. If there was sales tax on the original invoice, leave the tax box checked. This will reduce sales tax payable as of the date of the credit memo. Select Save and Close. Now apply the credit memo against the invoice. Select Plus New, then Receive Payment. Select the customer. Check the box next to the invoice that you want the credit memo to apply to and select the credit memo and apply it against the invoice. Select Save and Close in the Invoices tab in the Sales Center. you can see that this invoice is no longer outstanding. QuickBooks Online now considers it paid. Summing up. Learning outcomes. In this lesson, we covered using the write-off invoices tool in QuickBooks Online Accountant. Knowledge recap. You can now write off bad debts for a client using either the write-off invoices tool or a credit memo. Remember to work with your client to identify which method is the most appropriate for their situation. Next steps. In the next lesson, we'll look at troubleshooting inventory balances.